This week, we're in the dark with the bright light and the super scary darkness. Hi, and welcome to another episode. This week's book is The Bright Light and the Super Scary Darkness by Dewitt and illustrated by Zhai. So, we're going to dive right in. So this book uses something that children understand to explain Jesus and explain sin. So the book opens with a question. It says, have you ever been afraid of the dark? And clearly that's something that children are going to understand. So it talks about how the darkness can be super scary. And it uses these fun words throughout the book that kids like to kind of chime in on. It says, things make weird noises in the dark. And it says, screech, smorg, splurt. So then it introduces the fact that the whole Bible is really one big story about the light and the dark. And it jumps right in to the story of Adam and Eve in the garden and how everything was perfect and full of light and it was wonderful. And then sin entered the world. And then it uses those fun words again, screech, smorg, splurt. And it says this darkness and this sin was super scary. And as time goes on, it explains how before long people loved this darkness more than the light. And the world got darker and darker with each passing day. And then it says, but there were still some people who loved the light. It says God still loved the world and the people he made. And God promised that one day a baby would come into the world and his name would be Jesus. And I love this little section that this little line that Dan puts in here. It says, the prophets pointed to him, the poets sang about him, and the people couldn't wait to meet him. That's one of my favorite lines in the whole book. It says, but after years and years, the people waiting, the light still hadn't come, and sin was still reigning over everything. Screech, smorg, splurt. But God hadn't forgotten his people. It says, at just the right time, Jesus was born. Angels filled the sky with singing. And it says they were singing songs about the birth of that bright light that defeats the super scary darkness. It talks about how Jesus grew up. And his whole point in coming was to defeat the darkness by bringing people joy. But there were still some people who loved the darkness more than the light. Screech, smorg, splurt. So soon people got tired of hearing Jesus talk about the light, and so they put Jesus on a cross to die. And the super scary darkness grew bigger and darker than ever before. Screech, smorg, splurt. And this is really fun too. I love this line as well. It says, but let me tell you a secret. The darkness is afraid of the light. The darkness isn't super scary. The darkness is a scaredy cat. And it tells us that after 3 days, Jesus arose from the dead. It says the light of the world had risen and the darkness had lost. Jesus was alive. And then it tells us when we trust in Jesus and believe in him, we have that bright light shining in our hearts. And we no longer have to fear all the screech, smorg, splurts. Jesus is the bright light that defeats the scaredy cat darkness. And then he gives us a parent connection page. It says, remember 2 Corinthians 4:6. Light shall shine out of the darkness, and he is the one who has shown in our hearts. And he gives you a little scripture to read and gives us 3 questions that are perfect to talk about with your kids. They ask us to think about something that is super scary for them. And what can we do when we're afraid? And have you ever asked Jesus to forgive you of your sin? This is such a great little book for kids because it uses something that they understand. You know, darkness. Every kid seems to be afraid of the dark, at least at some point in their life. And Dan relates that to Jesus and sin and how sin is that darkness that has taken over. But Jesus is the bright light and that he's come and shown himself into our world. And then if we love him and accept him, he can come into our hearts. And so we don't have to be afraid of that darkness anymore. So this is a wonderful little book. And I hope that you can add it to your library. Obviously, it glows in the dark. Big pro there. Your kid will love that. Kind of just charge it up in the light before you turn on the light for reading at night. And they will really, really enjoy this book. So again, The Bright Light and the Super Scary Darkness by Dan Dewitt. I hope you can add it to your library. And until next time, bye.